Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney says a proposal for a new oil pipeline in Canada is highly likely.
Look, the bottom line is a new east-west coast pipeline in Canada is good for Canadians. It's good for world markets in that we have access to more supply.
But for the first time, Canadian liquefied natural gas is heading overseas.
As President Trump ramps up tariffs against Canada, Ottawa is responding, not with speeches or countermeasures, but with something far more strategic. For the first time, Canadian liquefied natural gas is being shipped directly to Asia, bypassing the United States entirely. At the same time, a new cross-country pipeline is being fast-tracked. It's not retaliation, it's leverage, and it could reshape the balance of power in North America's energy and trade relationship. In early July, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney confirmed what many had suspected. Canada is moving ahead with a proposed pipeline connecting Alberta's oil fields to the Pacific coast. This east-west pipeline would allow Canadian oil to bypass American refineries entirely, a strategic shift at a time when U.S. tariffs are rising. According to former U.S. Energy Secretary Dan Brouillette, Canada's push is more than economic. It's political. With American refiners buying most of Canada's oil, the country has long been boxed in. This pipeline could change that. But oil isn't the only focus. In British Columbia, LNG Canada has now shipped its first cargo of liquefied natural gas to North Asia. The $40 billion project, the largest private investment in Canadian history, has capacity for 14 million tons annually, and it could double. Suddenly, Canada is no longer just exporting energy to the United States. It's entering the global market.
Well, as you know, it addresses two key priorities for the Carney government. One, trade diversification, which is the new mantra in response to Trump's tariffs. So it fits into that. It also fits into the other objective of Canada becoming an energy superpower.
Why does this matter now? Because nearly 97% of Canada's oil and gas exports still go to the U.S. That's been a long-standing vulnerability. It means lower prices, less production, and no access to rising demand overseas. But LNG is shifting that. Asia now accounts for over 70% of global LNG demand. Countries like Japan, South Korea, and China are looking to cut coal use and need reliable natural gas. Canada, with its Pacific coastline, has a key advantage. A tanker from British Columbia reaches Asia in half the time it takes from the U.S. Gulf Coast. That means Canada can compete and win. If this shift continues, Canada could significantly reduce its reliance on American buyers. And in a trade negotiation that matters. It changes the power dynamic. Because if Trump continues to use tariffs as pressure, Canada now has an option. Redirect supply away from the U.S., not just in theory but in real volume. This is no longer a bluff. It's infrastructure in motion.
North Asia story. The project comes as Canada looks to diversify its trading relationships outside of the U.S.
The United States might be the world's top oil producer with a record 13.4 million barrels per day in July 2025, according to the Energy Information Administration. But production is only one part of the equation. Delivery is another. America still faces challenges building the pipeline capacity needed to move that oil. It also relies heavily on stable imports from Canada to balance refining needs, especially in the Midwest and Northeast. If Canada cuts or diverts supply, U.S. refiners could face higher costs. Consumers could see higher fuel prices. Even more, industries tied to energy, like electric vehicles, heavy manufacturing, and construction, could feel the pressure. Canada's new LNG routes, if fully scaled, could also undercut future U.S. export ambitions. While the Trump administration promotes its own Alaska LNG project, it's years behind. By the time American gas reaches Asia, Canadian cargo may already be there. Trump's tariffs were meant to corner Canada, but they may have pushed it to finally break free. Pipelines and LNG terminals don't respond to tweets. They reshape long-term leverage. And this time, it's Canada laying down the infrastructure, not just the rhetoric. As natural gas flows westward and oil bypasses old routes, the question isn't whether Trump will escalate. It's whether the U.S. is ready for a trade war where energy is the counterpunch.
Another letter has been posted on Truth Social, the president writing to the leader of Brazil, saying that he's imposing a 50% tariff on all imports coming in from Brazil as soon as August. A Section 301 investigation into all imports coming in from Brazil.
On July 9, 2025, the White House posted another tariff letter, this time aimed squarely at Brazil. A full 50% tariff on all imports, effective August 1st. It's the highest rate announced so far in this administration's latest wave of trade pressure. This move wasn't unexpected, but it was still jarring. For Brazil, it was a direct escalation. For the rest of the world, it was a warning, especially for nations still in negotiation or running out of time to get there. Canada and the European Union are both in the room with Trump's team, but they're not safe. They're on the clock. The Brazil letter did more than slap a high tariff. It triggered a formal Section 301 investigation into Brazilian imports, something Trump had used in his first term to justify long-term tariffs on Chinese goods. But what made this letter stand out wasn't the economics. It was the politics. In the post, Trump linked the decision to Brazil's handling of former President Jair Bolsonaro. He called it unfair. He called it a witch hunt. And that made the 50% tariff not just about trade, but about power. Brazil didn't get a negotiation window, it got a punishment. The kind that doesn't start with a phone call, it starts with a headline. And with that, Brazil became the latest example of how this White House is using tariffs not only to correct trade imbalances, but to send political messages.
European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said the EU was working closely with the Trump administration to reach a deal.
Well, in Ottawa, the PMO says Canada's July 21st deadline is serious, and consequences for failing to meet the deadline for Canada aren't known.
While Brazil faces tariffs outright, the European Union and Canada are deep in negotiation, each on a tight, ticking schedule. The EU is pushing hard to finalize a deal before August 1st. European Commission leaders confirmed that talks with the US are active and making progress. Trade Chief Maros Šefčovič said a joint statement is close. But Italy's economy minister warned, it's complicated. The text may not be finished until the last minute. Canada, meanwhile, is working against a different clock. Prime Minister Mark Carney's team is negotiating under a July 21st deadline, 10 days earlier than Europe's. This special cutoff reflects how Trump's team has chosen to handle Canada separately, after Canada dropped its digital services tax on June 30th to reopen talks. Unlike the EU, Canada is keeping things quiet. No daily briefings, no policy statements, just back-channel movement. And that silence might be deliberate, because in this game, what isn't said can be just as important as what is. Still, both regions are in the same position. Negotiate fast or face tariffs soon. The threat isn't distant. It's set to arrive August 1st. The Trump administration has said over 20 nations could face tariffs in the coming weeks if they don't enter negotiations. On July 10th, the White House confirmed more tariff notices would roll out in phases, targeting sectors like semiconductors, pharmaceuticals, and other strategic supply chain goods. This reflects a shift in strategy. The new tariff wave isn't just about trade balances, it's about alignment. Countries seen as moving closer to China could face heightened scrutiny. In that light, Brazil's case stands out. The 50% tariff, paired with a Section 301 investigation, came amid concern over its strengthening ties with Beijing. In response, China has warned that countries signing deals with the US that harm its interests may face retaliation. This is no longer just trade policy, it's positioning in a global contest, and the consequences will be economic. What happened with Brazil wasn't just about one country, it was about setting the tone. Trump is reshaping trade not through global frameworks, but through pressure and pacing. Some countries get letters, others get deadlines. But all of them now face a decision: move fast or pay the price. For the EU, the calendar says July 31st. For Canada, it's July 21st. For the rest, the time is shrinking, and the tariffs are already written. This isn't just a negotiation anymore, it's a countdown.